Hi guys. I'm in a weird location today. There's a lot of traffic outside. But I wanted to record this episode about being triggered into neediness. So this is for situations when you are in a situation where you feel a need to please others or be liked by others, and it's often triggered by a new social situation, maybe a new group situation that is isolated and not really based on who you are as an individual. So maybe that's like a school parent group or a new work situation where you're isolated in a unique group, or you're entering an existing tight-knit group as an outsider. I'll call it like a pleasing trigger in that you have a default setting that is activated where you feel like I need to please these other people and make them like me. And this idea that we have to fit in can be triggered at any age, no matter how much work you've done on yourself or how confident you feel. And I think it's often when we're in a forced social situation when we feel like we have to survive and thrive and be seen. And so know that if this is happening to you, it's not because you are weak or you're unevolved. It's because I think it's tapping into a wiring in all humans in that we need to feel, we need to blend in. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that old candid camera show where everybody in an elevator turns around at the same time, and the one person that is not part of the show turns around also just because of the entire group mentality. It's like it's part of our biology to try and fit in with others. So, these milestones, when we feel the need to fit in, might be when we are entering a new life stage, it's a new social group, and it can be a little bit frustrating and disconcerting because you're like, I don't agree with this. Why am I feeling so small and desperate? Like, I don't want to be this way. Why am I acquiescing? Why am I being pushed toward this trend? So, with that, there are three parts to this episode: the what, the why, and the how, the tools. Part one, the what. I would call it a disturbing reset button to feel like a desperate need to be liked. Like, that not acting like yourself, fake laughing, a need for external validation. So it can be something where you are trying to make other people happy, you're trying to make them like you, you're trying to be popular, you're trying to be one of the crowd, but it feels like a desperate, grasping, underfoot energy that is not embodied, it's not calm, it's not who you are. And I think it's especially exacerbated if a member of this group is cold to you, or the group is cold to you, or they're not responsive. And so that'll kind of make the desire to double down on being liked. And it can often make you feel very baffled about the group, but also about yourself. Like, what is coming up for me? Which brings me to part two, the why. On the other person's end, I mean, in many ways, I'm like, it doesn't really matter what's going on in the group's head, but I think often it's what I would call just a simplicity, for lack of a better term. Like, I think people in groups, depending on the group, but in like specific kinds of groups, it's better to be the same versus express individuality. So the desire is to have a collective sameness, and everybody agrees on that sameness and what sameness means and like how thriving in that sameness is defined. And then an individual who does not kind of blend in with those norms will be ostracized because of it. So it's like conformity is the way to win versus being an individual or being outside of that. The other thing I would say is like a question to reflect on is how accessible to this group or to these individuals who are cold, how accessible is joy and laughter? Like, how immediate is their ability to react to something that you say that's funny? Like, if you make a really funny joke, are they able to laugh or are they not? I would say that's a great way to work backwards from whether or not they are in ego or if they are present. Like, if they're capable of being open or not open. Like, if somebody's present, they'll laugh at something funny. If they're open, what's funny is funny. And if they're in ego and guarded, it's there's nothing. So if you are a person who is having this response to a group that is has created their terms for what is popular or normal or good, I think what is activating about it is for a lot of creative people, a lot of unique people, it is a reminiscent stage or a reminiscent feeling of adolescence. And like times of adolescence can be very damaging just because of how potent the emotional milestones are, like how potent the emotional memories are. So you might have been bullied, or you might have felt in a similar way, being kind of like a fish out of water, or feeling vulnerable, like you don't fit in, or whatever it is. You can be triggered back into the emotional memories of that age. And so in our bodies, a current adult situation will feel emotionally dangerous, like in the present. Hence, the intensity of the desire to be liked or to fit in. So, if you are like a confident, normal adult and you're like, whoa, what's happening for me? My body is feeling like desperate, It's probably old emotions because they all fire together and wire together. So, what's coming up is like teenage you, basically. I would also bring up to you if you are a person who's finding yourself trying, like struggling to fit into a cookie cutter shape of some social group that is new in your life, are you perchance accidentally slipping into an arena that is disconnected, and devoid of value and meaning that is true for you in your life? Like, are you accidentally kind of conforming into a life that does not make sense to your psyche? One that feels more reactive and grasping. The reason I ask that is because after we, if we start to play another game, like in this case, the game of pursuing success based on pop popular rules of culture, and then we finally achieve them, there's a moment of reckoning when we arrive at that place that was promised as like we're winning at life. Maybe that's a certain level of status, it's a certain social group, it's a certain level of wealth, it's a certain set of activities that you're invited to, certain batch of stuff that you finally get, whatever it is. Once you get that, we often realize that it doesn't fill the void inside. It doesn't actually quench anything at all. So if that's, I'm just raising that in case it might be ringing some bells for you, because like when we get there, when you do get to that place of like finally I fit in and they like me, it won't feel like you think it will. It's like the ruse of the chasing for validation makes us think we're going to feel better when we get there, but it actually won't, because what it's doing is making us tricked into believing that it is actually a true value for us. Like what this popular thing is making us think is that that equals happiness for us. And in reality, what we need to know is we need to have an understanding of our who we are on a deeper level, and what our value system is on a deeper level. And it has to connect to something that's bigger for us in meaning and in life. So it can't be just something we script for ourselves. It has to actually truly be a value system that is bigger than our ego, that gives us a sense of purpose and a sense of efficacy in this life. And like that it actually does feel like we're not wasting our time. And when that is missing, when we don't have that truly, we will feel a generic but pervasive feeling of hunger. And by that, I mean like it's just like a little like, what's missing? Something's missing. Something's missing. What's missing? It's an emptiness. And when you have like a kind of long-standing feeling of emptiness, what we do is we try to quench it. We search for ways to quench it. It's usually with alcohol, with weed, with shopping, with content like streaming, just constant ingestion of stuff to fill the hole, numbing out the hole. And so that's why so many people are like, you know, on Amazon at odd hours, or in my case, shop bop. It's like it's trying to fill the empty quench the emptiness inside. But what the real solve for that is not only like just visiting yourself in the truth, in like being present with yourself in the truth of that, it's also in finding things in your life that actually do have meaning for you. So, other people overeat, I mean, it's like we're all kind of like trying to numb out that empty feeling, but it's coming from something bigger. I think there's not really in present day life because everything is so dictated by routine and milestones. There are so many things that are just going to be prescripted for you in your life story. There are going to be things like at this age, you do this, and then it's time for you to do these five things in order to get into the right college. And then before you get into the right college, you have to do X, Y, Z. And if you're in college, you should really do a year abroad because of this. Like everything is so scripted out and it's so compact. There isn't a real universal milestone when we can disconnect from culture and from that prescripted life story and give ourselves a chance to question what path we are walking and whether or not it has value and truth to us. Does it resonate with us? Does that feel like rewarding to us? And then let alone have the courage to question it and choose something else. Like that is not built in to cultural, life stories. Like right now, I mean, back in the day, it was like there was so much less communication and formality to all of these things we do at specific ages. It was like, there's no internet, there's no like posting about it on social media. There was also just way less shit to do. Like, if you think about how much we do in a day, it's drastically more than it was in olden days, for lack of a better term. And so, for us today to break away from that scripted path and then question it and then have the courage to live something different it's asking a lot of ourselves. It feels very risky, it feels very dangerous. But a path with meaning that is designed around what we feel is important deep down is one that will ultimately make us feel great depth and joy and give us the evolution we crave deep down in our life story. However, it's not necessarily going to be easy or popular. Like other people won't necessarily celebrate it in us, but it will be purposeful and it will give us great drive, like unending energy and drive and satisfaction. Like what incredible juicy words those are. Great satisfaction in the work that we do in those areas. This podcast is a direct result of that specifically. When I started it, it was not convenient. It also was like not popular, like there had like 8 followers on SoundCloud or something like that. It did not fit into my day job schedule. And I remember a large part of my like cultured ego was saying like, what am I kidding myself? I can't do this on the side. Like, what's the reason to do this? But I found deep down that I was creating something that had meaning and gave me, unbeknownst to my like clouded, crowded brain, it had great feelings of satisfaction that came with it, of sharing myself with others who might be struggling in the same ways that I've struggled. So I say that to say you might actually not recognize what you care deeply about at first. It'll feel like trivial or like exhausting or like, well, where does this fall in the bigger scheme of things? But dedicate time to something that you do feel matters. It matters to you personally. And then it will fuel itself and it'll grow and like just little embers will spread to other people that will also feed it in you. And that it'll become something that activates great joy in your life and in your life story in its entirety. Like you might not actually care on a deeper level about sports or whatever social gatherings you are going to in your community or the specifics of your job, industry or whatever it is. Like, and it's up to you. If that sounds true for you, it's up to you to curate a unique element. It doesn't have to be a huge time suck. It just has to be something you do in your life. A unique element that feels meaningful. And that is when the cravings and the emptiness fall away because you have purpose. We need to experience meaning in our felt experience of our life versus just practicing the right things on a cognitive level. So I just bring that up because if you are feeling empty and alone and not like everybody else, I think that you might be lacking a connection to something that has true resonance for your soul. And it can be something you do in private. It doesn't have to be like, I'm quitting my job and I'm moving to India. It can be like something you're doing on your weekends with your children or something you do just in your journal. But make it an official, real practice for you that you dedicate to you. Say, like, hey, me, this is for you. And I am doing it because I know this is something that you care about. So before I go into the tools, I'm just going to have a brief word from our sponsors, and then I have some tools for this in particular. All right. The first tool, these are the how the tools. The first tool is called Inner Match. I am very hesitant to give this tool out because I really think it could be dangerous to use it. It could hurt other people. I say this and I ask you to please use it responsibly. But if you are being ignored by somebody and you're being mistreated by somebody in, let's say, this new popular social group that's triggering you, and you are struggling because you're trying everything to be polite, you're trying everything to be respectful, you're trying to engage, and whatever they're doing is like basically ignoring that. Often that is a sign that a person has secret, hidden low self-worth, like great insecurity. And for a person who is very insecure and self-loathing deep down in their core, the only way that they respect you is if you demonstrate you agree with their self-opinion. So you have to match their inner world. And by that, I mean you have to pull back and not pander. You have to treat them as though they are actually unimportant and you do not care about them at all. And I'm not saying like be mean and hurtful. I'm just saying do not go underfoot. You have to rise above their level so that they actually respect you and see that you see what they see of themselves. And do not do this as a way to manipulate them. I only offer this tool as a means to get you out of that receiving position, to sober you up, in other words, like to snap you out of this ruse, this illusion of I'm grasping underfoot. Like rise back above in your energy, don't pander, and only treat them the way they have treated you. And they immediately will snap out of it and be like, oh, she gets me. Like what? Hi. Like it's a very bizarre thing, but like a lot of people who have low self-worth, they only like people who treat them like how they feel. And that is just, I only say that to relieve your pain. Please do not use that as a means to hurt other people. All right, next tool, build a logic tower. When we are triggered, one thing we do is we get lost in where does that info fit? It can be like something that sends you spinning and anxiety. So you'll be like obsessively saying like, but what do I do with this info? What does this info mean? And we can't get out of that. And it'll just keep pestering us. So if you are having that scenario, what does it mean? Why are they cold? Why are they ignoring me? What did I do? Are they thinking I think that? If you're in that situation, the first thing I do is I build a logic tower of all the things you know to be true about yourself, about the world. And by that, I mean just like write out a list. What do you believe to be true? All the basics. Start that from the ground up and work from there. So, for example, it's almost like having a conversation with your inner therapist, but like you would write, I know that I am very popular in my work spheres. I know that I have no problems like this in any other situation. I know that I have had this same exact situation happen with other people here in my life, and this has happened in that situation. So you're basically like creating all of a case for nothing being wrong whatsoever. And then as soon as you can get like a decent like ground laying of that info, you realize like, oh, I have nothing that I have to make sense of because I don't know. There's nothing could possibly know to give context to any of this, and I don't have to. It's like it doesn't make sense, but I know it's not me. That's kind of the intended result. And if you cannot get to that intended result with this tool alone, the next tool is called trust figure. So this is like a second half to that. For in all situations, really, it doesn't have to be a social trigger situation, but like the second half of this tool is you can look for grounding in a person you trust who is highly intelligent, who, for example, you have followed for their career, somebody wise in your life, like a family member. But if you have this new information that makes you feel panicked, think of a figure for you who can hold this info for you. And I don't mean like literally talk to them. I just mean like who who do you know? What's a figure that you respect? What would they inform in you in this particular situation? Like what would be the grounding opinion that this person would have? And just literally rest in that. Apply it directly as if it is truth. All right, the next tool. This is a common one. I'm throwing it in here. It might not be relevant for you. I want you to customize it to whatever your stigma would be. Could be anything. This tool is called, I think it's because I'm old. I find that a lot of people I work with say this. It's because I'm of this age. That is like the felt experience. That's the way that we experience the insecurity. But it could be it's because I'm young. It's because I'm fill in the blank ethnicity. It's because I'm whatever. If you are saying a phrase to yourself like that, they don't get me. They're treating me this way because of XYZ. This is a reminder to break out of that thought process. It might actually be true. This has nothing to do with whether or not that is actually true, the reason why they're treating you that way. It's just for us to get out of that self-consciousness. If that's helpful to you. Sometimes it's absolutely not helpful. Like, for example, if you're being like treated differently because of your gender or your race, or you're being excluded because of those things, anger is probably actually more helpful because it activates. That was my caveat to taking in this tool. Anyway, so imagine that let's say it's the age thing. I think it's because I'm old. I in that thought process, we are identifying as that problem, as that being the symptom that is causing the situation. In reality, it might not be that at all. And so for us to get out of that feeling and looking and shopping for that feeling in all of our interactions with these people, I want you to pop the bubble on that energetic setting by imagining they are also, it's the opposite. They are old. All of these people are old. It has nothing to do with your age. It's them actually, they are actually old. So like superimpose the fear onto the group itself and imagine that that is true. And the reason I say that is because you actually don't know if one of those people or two of those people is truly fill in the blank thing that you think you are. They might be. Like you're judging them thinking that that is what it is because of your own fear in the specific area or your own past experiences in the specific area. But it's actually, I think, in our mind, creating a lot of the narrative of all of the interactions with those people. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just legit that thing and it's very present and we can't ignore it. But sometimes it really is a hallucination in our mind. And we just have to like step out of it just to see what that window looks like, just for a brief moment. Visit what the experience is like if that's not true at all. And then you can go back in if it absolutely is impossible to ignore. All right. Next tool, remember your cadence. So this might be different for all, whatever situation makes you feel like yourself. It could be work makes you feel like yourself. The basic tool is really resume your work energy. Let's say you feel really confident at work and you're interacting in a social situation or a unique work situation that is different for some reason. When before you enter said triggering situation, really embody in your mind and your body and your train of thinking the self who is in the other environment. There's a cadence and a confidence and an energy and a manner that is different when you're in that sphere where you are accomplished and you're not triggered. So before you enter into this social situation, bring the energy of your professional self. Be mentally in that self. Like if it's like an email you can read or a like text you can be into, it's just a way to like really think about the energy in your body and remembering your grounding and not getting lost in somebody else's energy because it can really feel like we're being pulled out of the seat of ourself and sucked into something different. So go back into who you are when you're not affected by this thing. It's kind of like a little reset or a tune. All right. Next tool, oldie but a goodie. I think it's relevant here. Detach with love. If you are in a place where you just feel completely underfoot, you feel triggered, you feel desperate, you feel like graspy, it's not making sense, you don't know how to get out of it, is great tool is just in your mind's eye, on your own, not talking to this other person, send them love. Detach with love. You don't have to engage them, you don't have to have anything positive with them, but in your own body, when you can say, I don't care what's happening. I'm just going to send you invisible love. I'm going to send you invisible support and kindness, no judgment. It immediately just allows us to feel a little bit elevated and not so put upon and not so at somebody else's mercy energetically, including if they're mean. It's just a way to not feel victimized by their meanness. It's like I am rising above it and I'm just sending you nothing but positive energy. All right. Next tool is a part two to that tool, which is called I am sorry. So I give a tool when we detach with love to somebody like a family member who takes it really personally. It's the Hawaiian prayer. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. That's like a way to just send energetic love is say that prayer. This for this situation, I would just say use the I'm sorry that feeling and that intention in your body. I'm sorry. Send that to them. I'm sorry. And by that I mean I'm sorry you're unevolved. I'm sorry you're so hateful and rude. I'm sorry that you feel all these things, like that you feel so insecure and that you're so cold and closed off. The reason I say that is because like if you can imagine just on your own time what it would take to be a person like that. What does it take to be a person who is intentionally cold to other people and wants to cause them pain? It means that you feel bad about yourself. Like a person who really is happy and open and confident and loves themselves never ever wants to hurt somebody intentionally. They only want other people to thrive and be happy. They have firm boundaries, but they don't want to hurt people. So just feel for that person in their lack of evolution as a means to get above the desperation and feel whole again, feel grounded in yourself and not have that thing own you. I hope that makes sense. So those are my tools. Actually, wait, I have one more. This one is called the light switch. I think this is a great tool for these types of situations, but also for social or regrets that we have in general in our life story. So imagine that there's a magic light switch. If you could just flip that switch, this group would just be your besties, and you would be in the middle of it, and you would be invited to all the things, and they would be celebrating you, you'd be hanging out with them, they'd be texting you. If you could flip that switch, would you? And what would that mean about your life? And what would that mean about today in your life? And what would that mean about who you are? I I guarantee if you go through this thought exercise, if you flipped that switch, you would not like that life at all. You would not enjoy it. You would be like, great, now I'm going to all of these gatherings with these people, and great, now I'm hanging out with them on the weekends, and great, I don't think you would want that. So, if you are if you, whoever you're trying to please, imagine they have now all come close and you have it. You have the thing you've been desperately trying to create. The answer is no. It does not make your life better in any way because it's not true. It does not resonate. And when you imagine yourself in that exact reality, you can feel in your body like, no, I legit don't want that. So you can isolate from there, work back from there and see like, oh, then what does this mean for me in my body? Oh, I can see I'm getting triggered into a very specific age self. I'm getting triggered by this dynamic into an old self. And really, the only thing for us to do once we recognize that truly is help ourselves ground our body in the moment of the trigger. So what does that look like? For me, it looks like I can feel this like almost energetic bolt of electricity go through my heart and through my chest of fear. And then immediately recognize it and I say like, what does trust feel like in my body? It feels like a squishy stomach. It feels like dropped shoulders. It feels like an open chest. And it feels like a deep, slow, unhurried breath, an unself-conscious breath. So I invite you to practice that the next time you notice that shock wave of anxiety. What does trust feel like in my body? How do I practice feeling that in my body right now? Come home to yourself. Okay, those are the tools. I hope this helps. Wanted to thank all of my latest sponsors. Really appreciate all my Patreon sponsors. And if anyone out there has the means, donations really help out this show. If you don't have the means, I totally understand. And if you could just share it with someone, it could help. That helps me as well. So, in closing, know that once you come back home to yourself and you feel seated in yourself, there is nothing to fix in the reality of the situation. It's really just the reaction that needs to be soothed. And it's no longer a threat when we can really come home to ourselves and feel like, remember who we are. Because people can be angry, people can be exclusive, people can be petty, and you don't have to be injured by it at all. Like once the need to please falls away, you can just exist in peace. You can do your job, you can go about your business professionally, and it won't distract you. It won't land anymore. It's like you sever the energetic loop. And it's as soon as you do that, you sever the energetic loop of trying to please, that suddenly the whole situation changes. It's like is created, space opens up, and oftentimes this is when other people change as well. It's like there's a new understanding that can be gained from that point. So I hope this is helpful and smile.